Play ball. Hot off the press, handicappers from Wager Talk, SportsMemo, and the Gold Sheet have collaborated on the 2023 Wager Talk Media MLB betting guide. From World Series odds to regular season win totals and everything in between, this year's betting guide features previews on all 30 teams, all 6 divisions, and season-long awards like the Cy Young, MVP, and Rookie of the Year. Each preview contains key roster acquisitions and departures to help you get up to speed before opening day. Visit wt.buzz/MLB23 to download your free guide, and we'll see you in the batter's box.
Welcome to the NBA Triple Double Show, powered by SportsMemo. I'm your host, Ronald Cabang, also known as UCapper on SportsMemo.com, at UCapper Sports on Twitter. I'll be joined by Money to break down the two games that are happening today. But before we get into those games, I do want to talk about what we got going on over at SportsMemo.com. It is Monday, so it is $9 Monday over at SportsMemo.com. All picks and packages on the site are available for just $9. We also have the free live odds pages on both wagertalk.com and sportsmemo.com. The deals pages, cappers provide free picks and analysis on a daily basis as well. All it takes is an email address to sign up, and those should be available for you over on the site. Before you head over there too, just make sure you hit the like and subscribe button here on YouTube. Before you go, it only takes a couple clicks, and it helps our show grow tremendously. With that said, let's get Matt up here with me. What is up, Matt? How is everything going? Well, it seems like Matt is will be joining us here in a little bit, but a couple of things here tonight. We got the Nets and the Sixers. Obviously, two key games here. Two series game number two. We know how the first games went. Both the home teams took care of business tonight. I'll get started with this Nets and Sixers game here. From a matchup perspective, the Sixers obviously took game one, 121 to 101. Really, from the Nets side, the only bright spots were Bridges and Cam Johnson. The Sixers, otherwise, they dominated on the offensive boards. They hit the threes. They hit 21 threes in that game. They also created 19 turnovers. I checked the Nets after the All-Star break, after they turned the ball over 15 or more times. They are 6-1 to the over. They definitely turned the ball over a lot less in the next game. They made the proper adjustments. Their offense was a bit more efficient, but they still allowed their opponents to score over 116 points per game. So their defense actually took a hit. If it just kind of turned it around or flipped the script, basically, they focused on the offensive side and then really got distracted on the defensive side of the ball. Nets after the All-Star break, after scoring less than 110 points, 8-3 to the over as well. Again, allowing over 116 points per game. Like I mentioned, they over adjust for the offense and then start to get hit on the defensive side of the ball. For this game specifically, I do think the Nets do make the proper adjustments to take care of the ball. I'm just not too sure they can limit the second chance points, is because the Sixers, they showed how physical they are to start that game, and they couldn't overcome it. A lot of, to rotate different players in the front court, and it just still didn't work. The other thing to mention too, they were able to shoot 56% from the field, but still lose by 20 points. I looked at how they do following games where they shot 50% or more from the field after the All-Star break, with their current roster. 5-0 to the under. For the most part, they ended up actually struggling on the offensive side of the ball. So a lot of things to me point to like a very inconsistent net squad here. And I think the only way that I could look really is towards the Sixers and the Sixers team total over. Matt, I think we got you back here, but what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, Ron, I'm very much with you on this game. We talked a little bit before the show, broke it down a little bit. And, when watching that Nets and Sixers game, originally I was a little nervous because the Nets were playing such good basketball. They were making a lot of outside shots. Michael Bridges playing unbelievable basketball, just very efficient as well. And then Cam Johnson pulling up, making some outside threes. Spencer Dinwiddie getting people. But for the show, I felt like this team gave the Sixers almost a shot already. So that was one of my things with it is
Yeah, I think we're having some technical difficulties with Matt there, but I think we were talking right before the show, and we kind of agreed that the physicality on the Sixers side really might be too much here for the Nets to overcome. Yeah, I talked about the Sixers team here, and I took the series. One of the best bets that I gave on the show. In a previous show, I think last week, sometime was the Sixers to win this series in 5.5 games or less here. I still hold true to that. Now that I've seen how the game one went, I feel like they might end up just sweeping this series in general. So that's the way that I would look into this game here. One other thought as well from a prop standpoint, we know that the Nets are probably going to have a strong fight here to start this game. Maybe we see the starters for the Sixers side play heavier minutes, so we would probably look towards some overs on their side, in my opinion. Obviously the points and rebounds from Embiid. I think the assist from James Harden would be good as well. I think one guy that always gets seems to get overlooked is Tobias Harris. Maybe a look towards his PRA because a lot of people tend to go towards Embiid, Maxi, and Harden as well, but they forget that the versatility of Tobias Harris, what he brings to the table. I think we got Matt back here. Go ahead and Matt, are you good?
I hope so. I
Yeah,
don't know,
uh,
honestly. My dad's got this broke boy
yeah.
internet. I'm
Go ahead
I'm
and
switching offices right now. That's why I'm here.
yeah,
What'd you
go
say,
ahead.
Ron?
See if you could get through this one.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm with you, Ron. We talked about this series beforehand. This is one of my I actually have a 5 unit play right now on the 76ers to cover the series spread. It's one of my I haven't had a 5 unit play in a couple months, honestly, and that's how confident I feel about this Sixers team. And coming into this, we discussed the mismatch with Joel Embiid against Nicholas Claxton, Joel Embiid against Day'Ron Sharp, and the Nets truly did everything they could. Every single time Joel Embiid touched the basketball, he was doubled immediately. But kind of like what we said before, I felt like this Brooklyn Nets team gave the 76ers a really good shot. They were making a ton of shots. Mikal Bridges was incredibly efficient. Cam Johnson, a lot of those guys. And you can't expect that from those guys every single game. Cam Johnson isn't really a star in this league. Mikal Bridges is definitely ascending to potentially becoming a star. But other than him, if he has an off game, then you're relying on guys like Spencer Dinwiddie to step it up, guys like Royce O'Neal, guys that typically do not do that. While on the other hand, with the 76ers, there's just so many different guys that can beat you. For one, starting with Joel Embiid, and then you have Tyrese Maxey, who didn't even play that well in the first half, got it going in the second half. James Harden was making a ton of shots, and to your point, Tobias Harris off the bench, DeAndre Melton. So to me, this 76ers team is just far deeper. I agree with you. I do think this is going to be a sweep now. Originally, I thought maybe the Nets would get one game, but from what I saw in game one, I just felt like the Brooklyn Nets gave them their best punch, and the 76ers took it no problem, still ended up beating them by double digits. So, yeah, I'm 100% with you. I'm with the 76ers in this spot. This might be a game where they actually start leaving Joel Embiid a little more open because the first strategy of doubling him, trapping him, getting the ball out of his hands, it did not work whatsoever. So they might try something a little different here. So I might be willing to go back to Joel Embiid because I think he might get a little more
Mhm.
isolation basketball than maybe in game one previous.
That makes a lot of sense to me as far as no longer trying to double Embiid, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, there's really nobody, like you said, nobody can really stop him. So if they do that,
Yeah,
he's gonna have a hell of a game tonight. One
he
thing to
will.
mention too, like I like to, especially in the playoffs, I like to look ahead, right? Like if I expect the Sixers to cover this game, win and cover this game by margin. I feel like the next game here, when they go back to Brooklyn, the spread's going to be overinflated. And we can talk about it with this next game here, too. But the spread might be overinflated to the point where it might be a good to maybe look ahead and say, all right, well, if we see this number, maybe like an 8 or something for the Nets here, I would probably take the Nets in game
Yeah.
3, even though I think that the Sixers win the game. So that's kind of like how I look at the playoffs. I'm kind of like predicting how the whole series goes. And I kind of just run with it as long as it continues to follow that path. So So let's up to the next game here, the Warriors and the Kings. We know Iggy's out for the Warriors here. Poole is considered questionable. He rolled his ankle in game one, so we don't really know if he's going to play. From a matchup perspective, I talked about this on Twitter. I did post this on Twitter this morning. It's very today. This game here specifically is in rare territory, flipping from a home favorite in game one to a home dog in game two is super rare. So it's only happened one other time in the history of the Killer Sports database. Where I run the SDQL stuff, and that goes all the way back to the 2002 playoffs. So only one time during that span, and it happened 2 years ago. The home team was the Suns. They won game one. They beat the Lakers in game one as a home favorite, and then in game two they ended up being a home dog. They ended up losing and failing to cover that game by a few points there. Obviously, it's a one-game sample size, so it shouldn't weigh in too heavily on how we cap this game. But it's just crazy to see how rare that situation is for teams in the playoffs to go from home favorite to home dog in the next one, especially
Yeah.
after winning that first game. You know what I mean? So sometimes
Mhm.
we say stuff like, "Oh, the line's telling a story," and maybe that could be it today. But well, what are your thoughts on this game here, Matt?
Yeah, again, very excited to watch this game. I've talked about the Kings Warriors series, leading up to this, and I feel like game one definitely lived up to the hype. I was on the Kings in that spot. And just to kind of recap, I know my internet cut out generally when we break things down or go over the weekend. Did not have the greatest weekend in the world. I went 2-4 on the weekend. Did have the Kings as a 4-unit play, so one of my heavier plays did hit with the Kings, and then ended up losing yesterday on Memphis. And one thing that I want to talk about here is with the NBA playoffs. I will say, Ron, that I am on the Kings once again. We talked about this before. I think a lot of people are going to look at this game where Andrew Wiggins had a couple open shots at the end, should have won that game, or potentially gave the lead in the final seconds. But I still think it's the Kings here. This is a series that I expected to go 2-0 Kings, 2-0 Warriors. And there's that old saying that a series doesn't start until a team wins on the road. And I don't know if the Warriors are going to win on the road here. This is still a team that was 11-30 on the road. And obviously they get a much improve with Andrew Wiggins getting added back into that lineup. But like me and you have discussed, when you add a player back into that lineup, more often than not, that team does lose. And game two might be a little different here. But one thing with the Sacramento Kings for me is this team can beat you in so many different ways. Yes, game one was De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk. But game two, I think Sabonis is going to go out and have a better game. Maybe Kevin Huerter steps it up. Maybe this is one of those streaks that De'Aaron Fox goes on with consecutive 30-point games. Generally when he gets one, he gets another and he keeps it going. He's a very, very streaky player. And one thing that I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
discuss real briefly is, say you like the Warriors in this series. I do not like the Warriors in this series. I have Kings in 7. But say you do like the Warriors, okay? And this is what I was going to do yesterday with the Lakers. But you could let this Warriors team potentially go down 2-0, because in the playoffs, it is very common for a team to go down 2-0 and come back and win, especially a team of the Warriors caliber. And you're only going to get better like live betting odds or series odds after they're down 2-0. And that's what I was planning on doing yesterday with the Lakers, because I do think the Lakers are going to win that series. And I thought they were going to lose game one. So I was hoping they would lose game one. I was going to jump on the Lakers, get
Mm-hmm.
better odds, and then they ended up winning anyways. But for me, Ron, I do like the Kings in this spot. But like I said earlier, if you do like the Warriors, it might not hurt you to wait one more game and see if they do lose this spot again, because again, it's about an even money spread. I think the money is going to continue to come in on the Warriors leading to tip off. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, I'm just with the Kings once again. This is a series I saw going 2-0, 2-0, and then game 5 will kind of break it down from there. And I know we see it a little different, but I'm with the Kings here, but interested to see what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about, that, how rare it is to go from home favorite to home dog, and maybe the line telling the story there. But I think for me, dude, I think playoff experience really plays a big role in this series specifically, because obviously the Kings get their first win in the playoffs in a long period of time. So it's really an emotional win for them, really. And in the playoffs, it's all about how you respond to these types of games, right? And I don't know if they're going to be able to come back and play like that type of game again once again. Because if you think about it, you had Lyles going 6 for 8. The bench went off. Obviously
True.
Monk is usually the guy on the bench who's pretty consistent as far as scoring, but for the most part, I don't know if we're going to see that type of output with that bench again in this series. I think from the Warriors' perspective, because of their playoff experience, they know how to adjust. They know how to make the proper adjustments and respond to these types of losses. I looked at the Warriors. They this core of Green, Draymond Green, we got Klay Thompson and Curry. They've been together since 2014 playoffs, I believe it is. So one thing that I looked at really was how do the Warriors respond to losses, and then they're the favorite in the next game. They are, what is it, 22-6 straight up, 19-9 against the spread, also 27-1 to the under in the playoffs in that situation here. I think they're just really good at coming together, bouncing back here, especially when they're the favorite, coming back as a favorite. So I think the books kind of see that. Even last season, they were 5-0 straight up, 4-1 against the spread in that specific spot here. Obviously, when they're the dog, it's a little different situation, right? But the books know what type of team that is going to be coming out, and that's why they put them in a favorite situation after a loss to this Kings team. Like I said, I think the playoff experience is going to be huge here. The Warriors, they got beat because of offensive boards, right? They got beat because they allowed points inside the paint at a high rate. I'm pretty sure the Warriors are going to make the proper adjustments to limit both of those. That means the Kings are going to get a lot of open shots in the perimeter. Obviously, they're one of the best perimeter shooting teams in the league. I don't think Herter's going to go over whatever it was yesterday either. But at the same time, you got Wiggins coming back after a long layoff, right? That was his first game back. I'm not 100% sure if he's going to get inserted back into the starting lineup, but he did play 27, 28 minutes in that first game. So I don't think he's that rusty, to be honest. Obviously, he hit 1 for 8. Maybe that was his rust, but maybe the second game he comes back and puts a little bit of a better effort offensively. um, but for the most part, dude, I really do think that the Warriors end up winning this game here. I was telling you, we were talking about earlier about how we kind of look ahead from game to game within the series. I do this is the way that I was thinking that this was going to play out. I took the Kings game one, right, and then I believe the Warriors take game two here, and then there might be some over adjustment on the line here from the books for game three, and we'll see what happens if the Warriors end up winning this game and blowing them out. That over adjustment is going to be pretty huge in game three, and that's maybe when you look towards the King side there to cover the spread, at least, if not win the game. But yeah, we're going to see how this Kings team responds to an emotional win, with it being their first playoff win in a long period of time. But what are your thoughts on that? We kind of, I know we look at it from an aspect of how the Kings did through the whole regular season, but I talk about how the Grizzlies are. Their Grizzlies are a really good regular season team. Do you
Mm-hmm.
think that the Kings are in that, I guess, in that same mold as far as just being a really good regular season team, or do you think they're made different here?
I actually think they are made different here. I do think this is a series that's going to go 7 games. The Warriors are my favorite team in all of basketball, so it's hard for me to say that. Steph Curry's my favorite player ever. And I think you do bring up a very good point here because I was thinking about this last night, I'll be honest, because I was thinking about the Brooklyn Nets, I was thinking about the Atlanta Hawks and how they're facing, the Celtics, 76ers. And these are two teams that just really aren't exactly battle tested as a complete unit. They have a lot of new players added in, DeJounte Murray, Sadiq Bey over on the Atlanta Hawks, the Nets, everyone's basically new. Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, all these guys. And then you look at a team like the Miami Heat, and I understand Giannis Antetokounmpo went down with that injury and stuff, but this Heat team has played together. They're actually a collective unit. They're battle tested, been through the playoffs, and they were beating that Heat team before Giannis went down. So I very much do think there is something to be said for experience in the playoffs and being a team that has some veterans, like a Jimmy Butler or someone along those lines. So to your point, I do think the Warriors are one of those units that will bounce back, whatever the situation may be. And for me right here, it's just, we've talked about it all season long, or at least I have. The two teams that I have bet on in certain situations are the Thunder and the Kings. And I know the Thunder let me down in my very last one, but this is just a spot where I do feel like the Kings are going to get it again. And a lot of it does have to do with the collective unit of the Kings and how guys like Domantas
Mhm.
Sabonis didn't really have that great of a game in game one. Like you said, someone like Kevin Huerter also didn't have that good of a game. And, Andrew Wiggins is an absolute baller. He is a huge addition to this lineup, defensively, offensively, rebounding, attacking the glass, things like that. And I think a lot of people forgot that if Andrew Wiggins was playing a week before with this Warriors team, I would 100% been on the Warriors. But I have, I guess, some strategy or a rule where I need a team to be together leading into the playoffs. It's tough to just insert someone immediately. So for me, the only reason that I'm not on the Warriors here is because I think these two teams are so similar. They both defensively they're
Mhm.
very similar, scoring they're very similar, pace they're very similar. They both are driven through a star point guard. They have a big man who facilitates the basketball, who rebounds the basketball, like Draymond Green and Sabonis. So I do think they're very similar. I just think that the Sacramento Kings were healthier leading into the playoffs, and I think this is going to be a 7-game series, like I've been saying. But I actually do have the Kings getting the upset, and the only reason being, I think this Warriors team was not a collective unit long enough leading into the playoffs. And I know that
Mhm.
they are battle tested. They have a ton of experience, stuff like that. I just don't know if it's soon enough or they've been together long enough, I guess you could say. So that is really the only reason that I'm on the Kings here, is just because of Andrew Wiggins getting added to that lineup late. So again, like I was saying, I'm
Mhm.
Kings first 2 games. I'm going to be Golden State the next 2 games, and then Game 5, we'll see where we're at.
Yeah, I think this is definitely going to go 7 games as well. I don't know who's going to end up winning that game 7, but it's going to be a good series regardless. Yeah, I know from a prop perspective, we typically like both of these teams from a prop perspective.
Love them.
One guy that I want to ask you about is Kevin Herter. Obviously, he had a terrible game, and like I said, I don't think we're gonna have that type of game from Monk again. He might hit maybe 20 points. He's that
Yeah.
guy off of the bench. Like I say, he will score in bunches, but I don't think we see another 30-game performance from him. Who would take those points? Hey, I don't think Lyles is going to go 6 for 8 either, and 4 for 5
No.
from the three. Maybe he does, but he'll get that opportunity. I just don't know if he'll actually hit the shots like he did in game one. But there's going to be a lot of points off of that bench there. That's going to be, I feel like, having to go to someone else. I think it's going to be Kevin Herter if we could look from a prop perspective. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was looking at Kevin Herter as well. His number is 14 and a half. And even after his bad game, that number, didn't move at all, which is definitely telling. Generally, the books think he might bounce back, have a solid game here, because Kevin Herter is the type of player as well. His number bounces 13 and a half to 14 and a half. So if he's stuck on that 14 and a half, there's a very good chance that the books actually do think he's going to bounce back and have a good game. Another player that I really do enjoy is Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray is one of those guys. As a rookie, he's been very consistent, especially from shooting from the outside. And one player that I expect to be more into the game here is Domantas Sabonis. I think he only had 2 assists last game, so I do expect him to be facilitating out of that paint a little bit more. So, guys, like you said, Ron, the guys that I'm actually going to be looking at, Kevin Herter will be summoned. The 14 and a half number, I don't know how comfortable I am with that. I usually like to get Kevin Herter at the 13 and a half range. And again, it kind of goes back to that point because with the Kings, there's so many different guys who can get you. Harrison Barnes, Keegan Murray, Kevin Herter, Davion Mitchell comes in off the bench, Malik Monk. Malik Monk's number was 16 and a half
Mhm.
now. Malik Monk is even typically a little bit higher as well. So for me, yeah, I think the guy who's somewhat unforgotten here is Keegan Murray. So I'm going to be looking at him and maybe playing his point prop tonight or something along those lines. But my best bet is from this show, from this game. So we're going to be talking about that very shortly as well.
All right, yeah, let's actually get into the best bet section there. I talked about mine here. I'll go first. I talked about it a little bit earlier. I do like the Sixers to win and cover by margin today. Like I said, there's a lot of things to me that says that the Nets are really going to get dominated here. The physicality of the Sixers side, the fact that they shot 56% from the field and still lost by 20 points is huge to me. Even so, I don't expect them to shoot 56% from the field again. So if that's the same case here and they're not able to make, there's no way they can make adjustments to adding physicality to this front line here. I think Embiid's going to eat in the paint and they pretty much dominate this game one more time. We'll see what the line is for game 3, but for the most part, I'm just gonna go with the Sixers here. Sixers, I feel like they're gonna sweep the series now. I did think that the Nets would probably steal one game here, probably at home, but after that game one, man, I just really don't know what type of adjustments they can make to get even close to the Sixers squad here. So my best bet, like I said, Sixers -10 here. I think they win by comfortably by double digits here. Um, I know Matt, you have a Eastern Conference preview over at sportsmemo.com. That's a free guide, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Talk about that real quick. Talk about what's in that guide. Obviously, it's free. You could just go to the site, sign up for it, and then you can get it downloaded for free. But talk about that. Also, what your best bet is for the show and other stuff that you got going on over at sportsmemo.com.
Yeah, guys. So one thing that I did on Friday was I made an NBA Western Conference preview and I made an Eastern. Basically, go over is who you think is going to win in the series, what players are well, like the leading point scorer in the series, the leading assist getter in the series, and I basically break everything down and basically have all the information in that it's completely free over on sportsmemo.com. I have the Western Conference preview and so definitely go check that out over at sportsmemo.com if you get some time and want to get some action. Again, I know it's one game into the series, but it's still very valuable information, and you can go check that out over on my page, and I will definitely have some plays over for the and Warriors tonight as well. Now, for the
All right, so real quick, we got to get Matt to refresh his computer there. He's a little lagging a little bit, but I'm gonna lead him into his best bet section. We talked about the Warriors and the Kings here, and we talked about the game that Sabonis had a little bit, right? We saw him go 5 for 17 from the field. Obviously, to me, I don't expect him to struggle from the field from that aspect, but he did have 16 rebounds. The other part of it too. Normally, he does pretty well distributing the ball. He only had 2 assists in the last game. So, from my thought about obviously the thought process behind Sabonis over his PRA is probably a huge bounce back here. I mentioned, obviously Monk and Lyles not kind of getting to that point mark where they did in game one, and that's gonna have to go to that has to go somewhere. And I feel like that Sabonis is one of them, and Herter is one of them. But I know the way that Matt breaks down the game is a little bit different than I do. He actually follow, he obviously looks at how the game goes. He watches if you actually ask him, he watches every single game. Especially the Kings here, he follows them very, very closely. This is one of the teams that he really looks at as far as like prop plays and stuff like that because of pace of play, style of play as well. So a lot of things in that direction kind of points towards the Sabonis over PRA 39.5. I definitely agree with him there. Another thing to mention as well is when Sabonis actually has 2 assists. I don't have the number in front of me, but he definitely bounces back. There's not a lot of games here where he has 2 assists in the game and come back and has a bad distribution game as well in the next one. So I definitely feel like it's a bounce back situation here for Sabonis. I am not sure if we can get Matt back here, but let's go. I just want to talk about sportsmemo.com here. Make sure you guys head over to sportsmemo.com today. Obviously, it's $9 Monday. All picks and packages are $9 from all the expert handicappers over at sportsmemo.com. We also have the free lives odds page. A lot of amazing deals on the deals page as well that gives you some promos over at Wager Talk and sportsmemo.com. Utilize the live odds pages. Like I said, the free picks page has free information, free picks, and analysis from all the sports memo cappers. Before you go there, also make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Like I mentioned, I don't think we're gonna get Matt back, but his best bet of the show was Sabonis 39.5 over PRA. So that is that. With that said, we'll be back on Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard. We'll have, I believe it's Jeff Michaels will be joining us, myself and Moneyline Matt. Till then, guys, good luck with all your action. Peace.
Play ball. Hot off the press, handicappers from Wager Talk, Sports Memo, and the Gold Sheet have collaborated on the 2023 Wager Talk Media MLB Betting Guide. From World Series odds to regular season win totals and everything in between, this year's betting guide features previews on all 30 teams, all 6 divisions, and season-long awards like the Cy Young, MVP, and Rookie of the Year. Each preview contains key roster acquisitions and departures to help you get up to speed before opening day. Visit wt.buzz/MLB23 to download your free guide, and we'll see you in the batter's box.